So here's a condensed diagram for your project showing you the various um, areas that we will be fortifying, as well as the devices that I chose for each area, and how each of the devices will work together to help prevent people from loitering and potentially breaching your perimeter. We have the southern perimeter here, starting with the southwest perimeter, the south wall, and then the southeastern wall. And then we have the north employee parking lot, and then the manager's building. So starting with the southern perimeter, the cameras that are in the blue colors are the multi-sensor PTRZ. So unlike a traditional multi-sensor camera, you have that remote setup functionality so that you can remotely, decide to zoom in, zoom out, have a wider angle or more detailed resolution or detailed pixel density across toward the far end of the image. If you look closely, you'll see that there's a little person icon right here and a little vehicle icon that basically shows you that from here until this line you can detect humans here up to here, and then you can detect vehicles up to here. These cameras are meant for situational awareness. They're not, the sensors will only be moving for the purpose of remotely setting up and deploying the device, which result in less time spent on installation. And in the future, if you wanted to, adjust the views, we wouldn't have to go back out there. You can just, remotely configure the camera so that the sensors are looking in different directions or wider angle or however you want. It's completely fully remote setup. Now, these blue multi-sensor PTRZs, they are really meant for situational awareness, not necessarily forensic details. The PTZ camera here, shown in purple, that's the one that's going to give you forensic details. So let's see. This is the green. The green shows the radar. It's a 180-degree radar, and if you see here, it basically goes from this wall all the way out in every direction. You can detect a human up to 200 feet and a vehicle up to 280 feet. I have the majority of these devices placed near your shed, where you're going to have PoE switch to power everything, and the purpose of the radar is to give you a primary detection for humans and vehicles. It's meant to do this in any lighting condition, practically any weather condition, and it's just a second. It's a primary way of detecting the humans and vehicles, so that this purple PTZ camera can zoom in and see those details. So this PTZ camera is it's basically auto tracking. So once the radar says, okay, let's say there's a person who jumped over the wall here, then this camera will zoom into this area and get you that forensic level detail, to be able to identify someone unknown to you, and not only that, but follow that person around the property. Now, this particular section is your neighbor's section. I would recommend that you communicate with your neighbor on what you're trying to accomplish, and maybe we tell them that we're focusing only on 30 to 50 feet away from the wall, so that away from your wall, so that if someone jumps over and they start walking to this area here, maybe you can follow the movement as, you know, from the time they jumped over. But for all other movement, you're not really concerned until they get within 30 to 50 feet of this wall, because I imagine there's going to be a lot of human and vehicle activity here. So you're going to want to differentiate, you know, the normal course of business from your neighbor versus someone who has jumped over this southern perimeter wall to potentially jump over this wall. So if and when someone jumps over, the radar will pick it up, the auto tracking PTZ will zoom in and follow, and if someone gets close to the wall, then, you know, it's the same thing. I mean, you have you know, we can for example put like a block area on the radar, so that it doesn't detect anything like in this area here, for example, so that it's only detecting the perimeter wall, and then the PTZ automatically follows the movement within these areas. I think that's probably makes the most sense. And then to actively deter anyone from, you know, jumping over your actual perimeter wall, you would have this D4100E siren strobe siren. It's basically an ascending level of colored LEDs along with an ascending level of audible siren. So when everything is good and no one is loitering or potentially going to breach, everything is in green LEDs with no audible siren. But if someone, let's say, is loitering near the wall, let's say after 10 seconds or 15 seconds or whatever time you want, that color will change from green to yellow. And then there's going to be a slight alarm level. And then if they get closer, and if they're loitering for, let's say, 30 seconds, then it can go from yellow to orange and get audibly louder. And then if they try to, you know, jump over the wall, it can go from orange to red with like a full-on siren. And these siren strobes will be installed in the middle of the wall, of the length of the wall, so that anyone along the length of the wall can hear the alarm and see the LED lights. There's also a speaker, and these speakers are high-powered digital signal processing, so they're very clear to understand. The vocals, they can, like, this is the decibel range and the distance, and ultimately the whole point of this is so that we can ensure whoever is gonna jump over your wall can hear the audible alerts. Whether you want to have a pre-recorded message play over the loudspeaker, or if you want to take it a step further and have a third-party monitoring company say something more specific, like, you know, you in the hat with the crowbar, this is private property, do not breach this wall, or we will call the police, or we will send security, whatever you want to say to deter you know, that person from jumping over the wall. You know, being more specific with the speaker is something that you can only do with somebody who's monitoring the system. And if it's not, you know, a security guard, then ultimately a third-party monitoring company is the way to go, because it's less expensive, and, you know, the system will send the AI alerts to them, and they'll log in and they'll take a look to see if is it, you know, one of the employees who's, you know, doing normal business out here, or is it somebody who looks like they're going to jump over the wall? Are they loitering? What's going on? So the reason why this speaker is in the middle is so that you can see, we can we can get the volume heard all the way to the end of the wall here. Now you'll see that it's at 90 decibels. The reason for that is because I measured the ambient noise specifically in this area on a Tuesday afternoon. It was between 75 to 85 decibels. So I imagine it may have been higher because I was closer to the on-ramp here, closer to the vehicles. I honestly don't know what it's like over here, but if it's louder, let's say because of this area here, then we might want to consider putting a second speaker. If not, if this is sufficient, then we have practically the entire wall covered here. The wall going from north to south. And then we have additional speaker devices along the southern perimeter that cover other parts of the wall. So we can do any number of things. Ultimately, we want to make sure it's to your satisfaction. I will say that what this software does not take into consideration is the height of your perimeter wall. So although you have a general idea of what you can expect to see and in what level of pixel density, so for example, with this camera, if you're looking in this direction, 29 pixels per feet, 27 to 29, it looks something like this. It's not very legible, but you'll still see that someone is there, and you'll be able, the system will be able to tell this particular camera. All of the cameras actually have AI built in, so they can detect objects such as humans and vehicles. So the PTZ cameras, same thing. They can detect humans, vehicles. The PTRZ multi-sensor cameras, they can take it a step further, and you'll be able to search by color of the clothing, the upper clothing, the lower clothing. So like blue jeans and black shirt, for example, you can search for people wearing that combination of clothing, colors specifically during a certain time frame to really find what you're looking for faster. And then you have the analytics inside the camera acting as a secondary human and vehicle detection. I mean, in your case, it's really just the human detection. You're not looking for vehicles here, but ultimately you have your primary detection from the radar, your secondary detection from the what's called Axis Object Analytics, or AOA, on the multi-sensor cameras, and then you have your auto tracking PTZ, which gets triggered from the radar specifically, that detects the object and follows that object wherever they might be. Even if they go, jump to this side, although the radar will no longer be tracking them, the PTZ can potentially, turn inward if necessary, if someone is controlling it, and can follow movement inward. It will be attached to a pole, so there's going to be a very small portion of it where it's being obstructed by the pole. But other than that, it is a 360-degree camera. So that's the western perimeter. Keep in mind, your main challenge here is to be able to differentiate, people who are a threat versus people who are friendly. And I recommend, we just pay attention to the areas immediately outside the wall here, so that we can only monitor those specific areas while getting the close-up details with this PTZ. I'll also say that the PTZ, although you don't really need a 4K camera, it does offer that added resolution. So, you could digitally zoom in either on live or on playback without, sacrificing the angle, and you can get forensic details with the digital zoom. the price difference between the 2 megapixel and the the 2 megapixel and the 8 megapixel was only $200 MSRP. So it just makes a lot of sense to have the the 8 megapixel camera. It's a 4K 8 megapixel, so a lot of pixel density, and it'll solve your lack of details, because you right now you have these Securitas cameras that are PTR that are I don't know if they're PTRZ or if they're just multi sensors, but they're not really meant to see a lot of details. They're meant for situational awareness. What's lacking is the PTZ camera that's auto tracking that movement. So moving on to the south perimeter area, you have a couple of obstructions here. You have a palm tree and a larger tree right here. We can put these devices anywhere. I think it makes the most sense to have the radar right here, so that you have you're right here in the middle of getting some perimeter wall to the southwest area here, as well as almost this entire perimeter wall up until this point. And with that, you can use the PTRZ to get trigger movement on any humans and vehicles. I'm sorry, not the PTRZ. This is a PTZ, the auto tracking PTZ, and I like this camera here because it can shoot between the palm tree and the larger tree. I highly recommend trimming these two trees if possible. That'll help reduce any false alerts that are caused by the trees in the radar. We can also draw like some kind of blockers around the trees, but I don't want to have too much like blocking around anything that's near your perimeter. This palm tree is right up against your wall. So yeah, with this auto tracking PTZ camera, we can easily get a high level of pixel density. 80 pixels per foot is what's commonly required to identify people unknown to you, and you can see that right now with this one, it's 130 pixels, 131 pixels per foot, and it's really just to get you those forensic details in case anyone is loitering in this area. If they're loitering, then you have your D4100E strobe siren that illuminates and visually shows the different color LEDs depending on the threat level. And then you have a speaker as well that can give you more specific talk downs if you have somebody monitoring, or it can just play back a pre-recorded message. This is private property, do not loiter here, we will call the authorities, something like that. Your PTRZ shows situational awareness, and notice how on these PTRZ cameras they're kind of like crisscrossing views. That really just shows you that you have full perimeter coverage along your wall, minus like some very small blind spots that are you can't see with this design, mainly because I can't really draw the height of the wall and the width of the wall, but probably there's going to be some very small areas around your wall that are not going to be in full view by any of the cameras or radars, but you're going to have the majority of the area up until the wall covered in multiple angles, using both cameras, fixed cameras, the auto tracking PTZ, as well as the radar. And then going to the south corner, we have another multi-sensor PTRZ. We have another siren strobe and another speaker, and you can see what kind of coverage that you're getting with the speaker, and at what volume, what decibel rating. So we're looking to get like somewhere at around 89 at the minimum. This is 98, 99, so it's plenty. I'm really just dragging it out a little bit more here so that we can get more coverage on the audio side. And we can, angle the speaker down, angle it up, angle it whichever direction as necessary. But I want to try to give you the most coverage as possible. There is no PTRZ planned for this corner or this side, mainly because this is a public sidewalk, and you already have plenty of coverage with the multi-sensor PTRZ cameras. I don't really think it's necessary to have a PTZ, tracking movement, because it's like a more narrow area. You can see that there's plenty of human coverage here, so you don't really need a radar. Will it be more effective? Yes, but you really can't tell the difference between a friendly or a threat here, so it just doesn't really make sense to have the added auto tracking PTZ and radar functionality. I really just reserved that for the western side and the southern side. The biggest threat, I would say, is the fact that you guys had this gate open during business hours. I think it makes the most sense to close it, and for if you have vehicles that are that are coming in on a regular basis, you can give them some type of like long range RFID. If they're newer vehicles or newer drivers, then you can use some type of like long range Bluetooth sensors, so that as their vehicle gets close, the gate automatically opens, and that Bluetooth credential can be assigned, on the fly, and have an expiration date or however you want to do it. But that, the ability for anybody to just walk inside this gate or to bring their vehicle in without any kind of like active security monitoring this, that is a major, threat to, given the fact of like what you're trying to do with perimeter security. So from there we move to the employee parking lot. This is where you similar to the western southwestern perimeter area here, you're gonna have a lot of friendly activity from your employees, walking to their cars, bringing their cars in, walking to work, walking back. So it's like there's going to be a lot of human activity that you're going to have to differentiate between, threat versus friendly. That's why I didn't put a siren strobe here. I didn't want to have any like false alarms. I did put 2 speakers as an option, one of which is on this corner here, and the other, and you can see it's getting like a pretty good 89 decibels this way. The other one would be from the center of this fenced wall area, and that's going to be pointing in the other direction. All of the speakers on this project will be set in zones. So for example, we can have this as one zone for the employee parking. We can have this as like west perimeter, south perimeter, and for the south perimeter we can potentially tie these 2 together, and then east perimeter we can tie these 2 together, so that if and when there's activity and you're trying to deter them, you can just have the automated message or the talk down via your monitoring company play to that, all the speakers in that designated zone. And by the same token, you're not going to want to have, an audible alert going out to all of your speakers. If something is happening here, you're not going to want to hear it here unless there's like some type of, major emergency and you need, people to leave the site, or let's say there's a fire somewhere and you want to, or like a bomb threat or something, or an active shooter, you can, broadcast a message over all the speakers. So here again, speakers are optional. I think the biggest threat you said was when people jump over the this perimeter wall, or in one case they crawled underneath the fence. The radar is set up so that it will detect humans even if they're crawling. You do have a palm tree here, I believe, so it would be a good idea to trim it. We can specify, you know, like focus areas along the perimeter wall, but you know, I think you're gonna have some activity between all the people who are gonna be walking to their cars and moving their cars. So maybe, I don't know. I really don't know like what to do about this area. I would say maybe like if you have a person who's loitering outside their car for maybe more than 10 seconds, then have some kind of alert so that somebody can take a look at it to see, is it someone trying to break into a vehicle? Is it someone who jumped over the wall? Is it someone who crawled over, like underneath the fence? And then from there, you would have the auto tracking PTZ camera zoom in and get that detailed view of exactly what's happening. So really high pixel density. You can easily get away with a 2 megapixel camera here, but you know, it's like I said, it's such a negligible price difference to get 4 times the resolution that I just went with the 8 megapixel cameras instead for these auto tracking PTZs. You also have multi-sensor PTRZ on the corner here, right there. Getting a view of this area down here, the 2 sensors in the parking lot, and then 1 sensor looking to the east. This is one camera that we're going to be replacing. Another camera that we're going to replace is this one, which I'll get to in a second. And then this is your gate camera. And then, like I said, we can have the speakers optional if you want. It's really your call. But this is the third and final radar on this project. I decided to move it here instead of trying to use like a 95-degree radar here, mainly because of this fence. It would highly obstruct the accuracy of the radar and of the axis object analytics, the AI inside the camera. So with this combination here, we have an unobstructed view, except obviously, you know, the cars, the vehicles that are here. We just have to make sure that these devices are mounted significantly higher than the vehicles that would be obstructing them. So this is a device that was replaced, that is going to be replaced. Right now you have a bullet camera, I believe, facing this direction to see vehicles coming through this driveway. By replacing it with a dual sensor, we'll get more pixel density on this like key problem area where you have people who are potentially you know, going to be jumping this fence or crawling underneath it. Plus, you have you know, the deep learning AI, which, so on the PTZ cameras you have machine learning for human and vehicle detection. On the PTRZ and the dual sensor cameras, you have deep learning, so you can, you know, do a color search, size search. You can search for, let's say, you know, car versus truck versus motorcycle versus, you know, whatever, the size of the vehicle. And so you have a lot more analytics. Now, part of the reason why I wanted that is so that in looking in this direction, you have coverage of the west and north side of the manager's building. I wanted to reduce the camera and device count to as few devices as possible. And every device on this project only takes 1 license. So whether you're using a dual sensor, a multi-sensor, or in this case, a fisheye, a 360-degree fisheye, and because it's installed in the corner, it's getting a 270-degree view. you're able to just use that one license and get, see in multiple directions. And you have on this camera as well deep learning AI so that you can see colors, sizes, and so on. So using two cameras, one of which doesn't need any new cabling, and this would just be a short cable run to power, from inside your manager's building. These two are both, short PoE runs. We're able to have some type of active deterrence here, and really have a minimal number of cameras to see around this building. My only limitation that's worth mentioning is if you have any vehicles that are parked out here, you're not going to be able to see between the vehicle and the building. The vehicle will act as an obstruction, so just keep that in mind. If you want to see around the building, then it would probably make sense to have another camera mounted on the corner, for example. Maybe not necessarily as sophisticated as a fisheye, but we can have, for example, another camera in this direction pointing this way. Other than that, I will say that there is another type of device that is a combination of strobe and speaker, and it can offer PoE out to, let's say, a camera. However, the speaker output is not nearly as loud as these network horns that I have specified for this project. I'm using these for a reason, mainly because they have up to 110 decibels of volume, and your ambient noise level was between 75 to 85 decibels on a Tuesday at the southern perimeter. If it's louder here, then we definitely want to be around the 90 decibel range, and the other device just isn't as loud. That's another reason why your existing system with Securitas is not really working to deter anyone, because although they have speakers built in to those all-in-one devices, they're not powerful enough to get over the ambient noise level. So by the time anybody hears it, it's like you can't hear it, basically. And that's if there's any automated audible alert. So ultimately, all of these devices are chosen not only with a visible consideration in mind, but also with the audible consideration, so that people can hear the alerts. You have the auto tracking PTRZ to give you those forensic details that you currently don't have, and just have these things following the movement around these trouble areas. I mentioned the power source from inside this building. These are short cable runs. I believe you have the PTRZ is an existing device that's going to be replaced. That's going to be replaced. We may need some type of additional. I know the auto tracking PTZs have 60 watt PoE plus, like PoE plus midspan included. Everything else should be PoE plus, so you should plan on having enough wattage on your PoE switches, as well as enough open ports to support these devices. We don't have cable going here right now, but I believe you have a PoE switch here, so it's really just a matter of running the cable along this wall, and also installing another pole here, because right now the pole that is behind this wall, it's only a few feet over the wall. We're gonna have to have the installers install another pole next to it, so that we can get. This is right now about a 12 to 13 foot wall, 13 feet, 12 feet to the 13 feet high wall, and the existing pole is maybe like a couple of feet over it. So we would just need one longer or taller pole, so that we can attach the one speaker to it approximately 20 feet off the ground, if you want that speaker, and then below that the auto tracking PTZ. And then for these areas here, you're gonna have this shed, I believe. We're gonna have a large PoE switch here. So these will be shorter runs through conduit, going to these devices here, and then these are like short to medium runs along this wall, longer runs over here, maybe have another PoE switch over here, so that we can daisy chain. I don't know if you want to use Cat6 to daisy chain or if you want to use fiber. We can daisy chain whether it's here or here. I'll have to do the math, but ultimately there's going to be another PoE switch at either of these locations, so that we can get enough, have enough cable to daisy chain to this area right here. That's, we have a number of poles. You have your older poles that are taller and larger. These would be installed at 20 feet high, so these will be installed from those poles. We might be able to take advantage of some of the shorter poles for the multi-sensor cameras that are not going to be installed very high, maybe 12 to 15 feet high. And then, underneath that is going to be the siren strobes, the radars, and that's pretty much it. I'll send you a report for all of this, and meanwhile, I'm going to work on a labor bid as well. And just let me know if you want to eliminate anything from this or add anything to it. Thank you.